Alright everyone, now we have actually a funny story, which is on Facebook. As you probably know, news is fact-checked, which is that it's gone over with a fine-tooth comb by a bunch of partisan groups and by the corporate media and craptivistic NGOs that have weird views of reality that don't often sync up with any objective truth. And they go through, news that's going to be put on Facebook, which goes straight to a news feed. It's separate from the normal feed that people experience. It's a separate thing. Now, on the normal feed, things aren't really demoted in this manner, but what happens if it's labeled fake by these groups that do the fact-checking is it can reduce the circulation of it in the news feed to basically zero. This has happened to numerous groups before, like the Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee had a bunch of its material labeled as fake news, and it was basically removed. At the time, they were removing the fake news. They don't do that really as much anymore, unless it's malevolent, supposedly fake. The Babylon Bee is a satire publication. It's like The Onion. That is, the whole purpose of it is to be fake. It's literally nothing more than a right-wing slanted satire. It's sort of like the right-wing version of Cracked, or something, only maybe less scatological humor. And so they don't, Facebook's algorithms, its bots, and fact-checkers have difficulty, it seems, with satire. This has been a perennial problem. Satirists and comedians suffer more from censorship than almost any other group of people. If we if someone like me, I'm mainly analyze news and politics. I'm not really satirizing things. For all the amount that someone like me would suffer, someone who does straight-up satire suffers 10 times more. I feel sorry for them. They're primarily the ones that get really hammered. What happened this time, though, is that an extreme far-left craptivistic group called ThinkProgress, it's sort of like Share Blue or Media Matters or any of these other partisan groups, they released a bit on Kavanaugh. It was fact-checked by the Weekly Standard, which is supposedly right-leaning. It's really just a neocon publication. And the Weekly Standard determined it was fake, and it got demoted. ThinkProgress blew a gasket and is now absolutely livid that Facebook would allow the evil right-wing publication to fact-check our report here on Kavanaugh. Now, objectively speaking, the report that they gave is false. It's claiming things about Kavanaugh that simply are not true. It is literally fake news, but it's coming from one of the craptivistic groups that's pushing the tech censorship. What they don't understand, this is really funny because in this instance, it's not an independent commentator being labeled fake or bigoted or being otherwise defamed by corporate media or by an NGO. It's one craptivistic group being targeted by another corporate competitor. Literally, the way in which Facebook has set this up allows one corporation to fuck another corporation over. Now, we've seen this before. CNN fucked InfoWars over. CNN is a for-profit communications corporation. InfoWars is a for-profit communications business, not really a corporate entity, a smaller firm, but it competes in the same genre. What YouTube allowed early on was it allowed CNN to abuse them, to run defamatory reports without repercussions and go after their advertisers, flag their YouTube videos, and try to generate a lynch mob harassment style. It is no different than a form of raiding. It's in fact banned if you're a private individual trying to organize raids in that fashion. On most websites, you get banned for doing so. You're not supposed to, even on a site like 4chan, you're not supposed to do it. 4chan is the edgy underbelly of what passes as normie internet at this point. Now, you're not supposed to organize raids, even on B, which, by the way, is very dicey. And if you only want PG content, you probably shouldn't go to 4chan, to at least most of the pages, including some of the WorkSafe ones, supposedly. It's like a lot of people say that there's like a fan page for me on Reddit and stuff. It's like, sorry, but I don't use Reddit. I'm a 4chan user. But no, it's very funny to see ThinkProgress, which is like an Obama-tied group, whining about corporations censoring them. And they drag out, well, they're far right, they're evil. That's what's going to happen. You've introduced the concept that for-profit corporate entities should be able to censor online speech. Now, ThinkProgress means by that they want people who are ideologically opposed to liberalism to be censored. They want people who aren't social justice warriors to face repercussions for their beliefs. And they especially want to be able to target any competitors that they have or that their partners have. This is how it works. When we look at these corporations, the tech giants especially, censoring people, they are not just in a vacuum doing so. They have ties to government, they have ties to corporate media, they have ties to foreign entities, they have ties to all sorts of other businesses and corporations. What the liberals have done, liberals so-called of course, in this country and in other countries, is convince their fan bases that it should be acceptable for billion-dollar for-profit corporate entities that have ties to the government to circumvent the Constitution and other legal protections in other states, to circumvent the right to privacy, to circumvent the right to free expression, by acting as a censor on the behalf of our government and other governments. That's really what's happened. These corporate entities are now abusing one another using those same tools. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. The Facebook censorship, according to ThinkProgress, was a great thing. It was they're kicking off bigots and they kicked off evil conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Oh my God! They censored one of our stories despite the fact that it is demonstrably propagandistic and fake. They let the Weekly Standard do it. You know, the Weekly Standard is a legit corporate publication. Press credentials, journalism degrees, and the whole, the corporate office, the whole 9 yards. Well, I guess that's all you need to be a fact checker on Facebook. All you have to do is have a big budget and you have to have a janitor and a multi-million-dollar budget. Facebook will let you determine what is or is not real. Meanwhile, some YouTuber whose circulation is probably bigger than the Weekly Standard and ThinkProgress combined, no, they're the ones getting abused. See, the whole idea is, the corporations have already fucked over all the independent competitors on Facebook. Now they're going to go after each other. That's just the way that it's going to happen. And this is a uniquely, by the way, Facebook-level problem. This hasn't been on other sites, you have very much secretive, opaque, behind-the-scenes sort of censorship going on. But you don't have corporations going cutthroat on one another, with the exception of CNN, which has pioneered the field of attempting to defame people in order to write hit pieces and get them deplatformed. They've been doing, the Wall Street Journal and BuzzFeed are just adopting a CNN tactic when it comes to it. Wall Street Journal is the only other firm that adopted it very, very early on. Those two. Basically, it's the axis of evil for the corporate media. CNN, the Wall Street Journal, and BuzzFeed, the three most defamatory publications. I would say the Washington Post is probably in with them now as well. The New York Times, kind of. Once in a while they have an op-ed that makes sense, but it's rare, it's few and far between, it's as scarce as hen's teeth. Now, it's very, very funny to see ThinkProgress, because they think, we're progressive, we're on the right side of history, the arc of progress is in the direction that we so will it. And then they get censored, they get fact-checked because they put out bullshit that's not true, and they fly into a hissy fit. Well, you're the one saying corporations should censor everything. If you're putting out stuff that's not true, yeah, you should be demoted. Algorithmically, you should be banned from Facebook. You're a propaganda service. Get rid of them altogether. ThinkProgress really should be banned off these sites. They shouldn't have a seat at the table. They try to claim they're activists. Really what they'd want to do is fuck over the independent competitors of their corporate buddies in the neoliberal media. I guess the Weekly Standard isn't in on the game. Yeah, around the time that Breitbart gets to fact-check reports from BuzzFeed, you're going to see all hell break loose. And they'll probably end up happening, because the problem with this censorship is Zuckerberg has to pretend not to be openly biased. With all of the problems, Google tapes, the hearings involving Dorsey and everyone else, the deplatforming of InfoWars, what's happening is that people are now becoming aware that there is political and corporate bias involved and money-making scheming involved with this censorship. It's not actually an attempt to deplatform bigots, because most of the people being deplatformed aren't bigots. It's not an attempt to decrease extremism. That has nothing to do with it. That was just an excuse to get the ball rolling. We're combating online bigotry and so-called hate speech, whatever the hell that means. Whatever the ADL determines that it should be, I guess, is the operative definition of the SPLC. The problem being, while these groups are technically non-profits, they still profit. Somebody's signing their checks, and I wonder what kind of political beliefs could those people possibly have? It's just corporate censorship. It's not an attempt to deplatform extremism, not in any way, shape, or form. That's about all. Peace out.